Well, hello and good morning to everyone. My name is Paloma Mayorga, and I am the development coordinator at Big Medium. Thank you so much for joining us today for Coffee Chats. These talks are part of our Creative Standard program, through which leaders in the creative community share their personal and professional experiences to inspire others pursuing careers in art. Today, we welcome artist Aimée Everett, who is joining us from West Texas. Aimée is originally from New Orleans and is now based in Austin. Her work is based in abstraction, features saturated colors, and occasionally reveals delicate figures as a way of constructing a nonverbal language that explores themes of gender, race, interpersonal communication, healing processes, and even truths, often hidden away in memories. She's shown her work across Texas and in New York, LA, and New Orleans, and she is currently interning with Texas, completing a residency. Welcome, Aimée. Thanks for joining us this morning. How are you?
I'm good. That was a great introduction. Makes me sound like I'm doing great things. So
Oh, you are doing really great things. I thought that maybe we could start out by you telling us a little bit about your work and yeah, just in your own words.
okay. So I've always been interested in abstract work because it doesn't deliver this literal interpretation of whatever the artist is working through, even if it's just an exploration of materials or colors or things of that nature. And so I wanted to use it as, it began as a nonverbal language for me. In a lot of my work, I use lines, and the lines are this sort of coded message, almost like Morse code, where there's full stops, there's breaks. And so a lot of the lines represent like a language that I've created for myself. So creating this language is important for me because growing up, especially as a woman or as a Black woman, you're not always listened to. And so I found that when you create something, people stop and they listen. Because they don't know what the source is or where it's coming from. At that point, they just see the work and it's an unbiased listening. So
Yeah,
that's what I started creating.
yeah, that's a really beautiful concept. I think that there's so much truth in that already. Um, and yeah, I don't know, like I'm particularly like interested in the in your use of color. So like you mentioned that your experience growing up in New Orleans really impacted like the way that you see like these vibrant and bold colors. And I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about like how your environment impacts the way that you process color. Like the work that you've been posting on Instagram the last couple of weeks while you're in your residency there, again, just really, to me, really captures the essence of the West Texas desert. So I'm definitely curious about that.
So growing up in New Orleans, and I don't know how many of the participants in the Zoom chat have been to New Orleans, but it's just saturated with color. Like, the houses just aren't white or gray like in normal communities. The houses are vivid purples and vivid yellows. And we have the Mardi Gras Indians and we have Mardi Gras itself. And we just live in this way that everything is saturated, be it the color, be it our the way we speak and the way we express ourselves. And
Mhm.
so that carries on with me through everything that I do. And being here, especially in West Texas, like even though it's the desert, the colors that exist here, they are vivid and vibrant colors. And I think that's important to be in, even though a lot of the colors here seem to be muted, it's still a saturation of muted colors. So that's still something that you can explore. And so I've been very, yeah, inspired by this sparse and muted landscape.
I think that definitely comes through in the works that you've been posting. Like, it's such a strange concept to have like saturation, but also muted. And I love how you just explained that. Um, yeah, like um, another element in your work that I really appreciate is this use of like geometric shapes and lines. And that's been a consistent element in your paintings for a little while now. Are there I'm curious as to like where they come from. Like I see these like little mathematical equations everywhere, and I'm wondering if that's something that that inspires those like carefully constructed lines.
Yeah, some of them do. Like, I'm really interested in how lines and circles like intersect, and I think that's a lot about how life is. you know, you're living one way and another person is living one way, but you're still in this circle of like life and thought. And so when you meet someone, it's like you're at this point of tangency, and point of tangency in like in math and algebra is where a line connects with the circle. And so I think that we all are at multiple points of tangency in our lives, be it our work, how our work intercedes with our main life, which is a circle, how people you meet interconnect with that. And I think that I was never really that good at math. I was good in like trigonometry and like the visual maths where you can see charts and, you know, lines and things like that. And so I cover that into my work because it makes people look and try to figure it out because it seems like a problem that needs to be solved.
It does very much that.
So I try to throw that in the work to give it more of a visual composition where you want to figure out what's going on, you know, not just color and line, but line that has a purpose.
I love that. And I mean, math is just, it's always considered like the universal language, right? Like anybody can understand it, like study it. You can speak different languages, but also understand this particular language, which I think kind of like goes back to what you were saying about just putting work out there that people are going to listen to, rather than like be, I don't know, inhibited by whatever barriers they see. So, and I think that that's like, from what you've been telling me, like it's also, that's something really important to your work is like that sense of communication. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, like human communication is something that's very important to me because I obviously it's the only way that we can transmit how we're feeling or what we need. And I think
Mhm.
words are just abstractions that we've agreed upon. And so it's like what's left after those abstractions that we have agreed upon that some people have difficulty understanding. And then it also gets into this like minutia of elitism when people don't understand certain words. So to take away all of those biases and those, you know, issues, I use minimalism and color to kind of bridge that gap and look at what's left over after we've used these words that everybody doesn't clearly have access to
Mhm.
explain themselves. Because I feel like even after we do all of this communication, there's still these residual feelings. And I think that is really at the heart of how we feel. And it's so hard to communicate that. And so I try to pick up what those residual things are and make these paintings look like what I think they look like.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I don't know. I find this concept of like verbalizing in a nonverbal language really interesting. Um, yeah, there's, which actually kind of like leads me into like another one of like your series of works, the Conjuring Constellation series. I really appreciate how like some of like the titles you've included make reference to different quotes or lyrics, and again, it just like thinking about like what you're saying of taking a concept that you've finished like saying what you have to say, like in those lyrics and the quote or whatever, and then like translating that into a nonverbal language. I think that's so beautiful. What what else inspired those the Conjuring Constellations paintings?
So, you know, we always look up at the sky and we want to understand these constellations that were made truly for people to find their ways. That's why they were made. They were made so you know where the Big Dipper is and you know what direction it is. And these are constellations that someone else made to help themselves. And I wanted to like conjure and make my own constellations to help myself throughout life. And so that's pretty much what I did. Is I use this, this outer space or this terrestrial type of imagery
Mhm.
to create like milestones or things to help me along my way. Um, yeah, because it's we always look up at these constellations in awe, not realizing that we can make our own constellations or we can make our own um, signifiers to help us find our
Guide.
way. Yeah.
Yeah. That's really cool. Like I'm thinking about like how I like the things that I use as like mile markers or like thoughts that I put into journals or whatever that I'll revisit later to help me like process feelings or whatever experiences I'm having at the time. And do you find that you're doing that either with writing or with like looking back at these works that you made?
Yeah, so I think so I don't believe any thought that you ever have goes away. I think once you have it, that thought is in your cycle. And that's a lot of reason why I paint on circles, is that I feel like thoughts are repetitious. And I think a lot of these are great ideas that I have or great feelings that I have. And some of them are things that I need to work out. And so they're reminders of all of those things. And so I look back at them like, oh yeah, I did need to work on that, didn't I? You know, so it's kind of almost like, I guess, like a visual journal.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that's really great. It's taking this like concept of time and again, like making it this cyclical uh, thing, or I don't know, it's like, I'm just like thinking of, what was that movie with, was it Amy Adams? Oh, I can't think of it, but well, I'm just like getting into a little tangent there, but they talk to aliens and it's like the language it's a visual language, but it encompasses like all of time. And that's kind of like how I'm seeing your work.
What was that movie? But I know what movie you're talking about. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
If anyone knows, drop it in the chat. I can't think of it right now.
Is it Contact? It is.
Maybe, yeah. But anyway, that's how I'm like picturing your or that's how like the new light that I'm seeing like your works in, which I think Arrival. That's it.
That's
Thank you. Thank you, Brooke. Yeah, so I'm actually like a really big nerd when it comes to like astronomy and like astrophysics and all this like sci-fi stuff. And not that it necessarily like filters its way into like my own work, but in your Boss Phase interview that you did a couple of weeks ago with Coca, you mentioned that that you actually went to school to study biology, and I'm curious if like sciences in that way like play a role in your work.
Yeah, I think science does. I mean, I'm still, you know, a big science nerd. I'm still like, I don't know if you follow my Instagram stories, but I'm like truly interested in like botany and plants and horticulture. So yeah, all of those things, they play a huge part in how I create, because I think it's also still like they have this, you know, plants and, you know, our organs and the way our body operates have these ways of communicating to us that things aren't right as well, you know? So I think all of that goes into communication. And I think the words that we use are once again abstractions to quantify those things. So I think it is important. Biology is still very important to me. Yeah, definitely.
That's cool. I know that again, we've been having like this conversation about taking different mediums or like different disciplines and helping them like inspire your work. And I found that concept like really interesting, and even like Deborah Roberts in her coffee chat, whenever she did that with Betty, she talked about how like literature was the one thing that was missing from her work. And that's something that I've been also finding like true to be for my work. And it seems like you have that practice down. Like, can you talk a little bit about that? Like the different things that you've been reading maybe?
Yeah, so I brought a lot of books with me here. Let's see. I read everything. So right now I'm reading The Daily Practice of Painting by Gerhard Richter. If you're an artist, and even if you're not, this is something that's, you know, that'll give you an insight on like the practice and what painters try to achieve in the studio. So that's important. Let's see. I'm also reading, which is probably, you know, funny to some people, but I'm reading A Chronicle of a Death Foretold. I just finished Love in the Time of Cholera, so there's that. And West African religion. So yeah, I kind of go within everything. Like I do what is painting, and I read the works by like art theory by other artists, because I'm interested in how people how they process artwork, how they process painting, and how they arrive at the ideas that they have. Not so much their style of painting, because I'm not interested in that. Like I'm interested in mine, but how did they get the voice? And I think that's what's so intriguing to me about words, is because what words do they choose to explain their idea and their theory as far as creating a painting goes. And that's really important to me. So I try to like, you know, digest all the words I can from any type of literature.
Yeah. I'm just like looking at the chat right now, and I'll kind of like pull questions from it, and then we'll have a little bit more like time at the end for it. But somebody asked like what the scale of some of your circular paintings are, and I'm wondering if like in the concepts of like how people have seen painting or like how they use it, like, is there something about size that is like meaningful to you that you found? Because like, I guess the skill of the circular paintings are about like, if you're a human, like it's about yay big, right?
The biggest one I have is maybe 3 or 4 feet. And I think the thing that people have to realize about the circular paintings is that I can't just go to the store and pick them up. They have to be commissioned by a carpenter. So I have a carpenter that makes all of them. And I mean, you can go to the store and get like a 8x8 or 12x12, but for the size and the quality of wood that I want and the thickness that I want, I have to commission all of that. So it
Yeah.
really just depends on what the collector wants. For myself, I'll only go as big as a 30x30 in the circular size because I have to store that. And, you know, going up to 8 or 9 feet is a lot of space that I need to, that I'll need to store. But I do have a you know, traditional square oil on canvas piece that is about 6 feet by 6 feet. So
do you, so I know that like that Mark Rothko is a big inspiration to your work. Do you, whenever you've been working on the like the 6x6 oil painting, like do you find yourself in that sort of like exploring like those concepts of like just like diving into the paintings?
yeah, I think if I think as an artist, you want to see like what scale can do for your work.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's important when someone, especially like, you know, a circle, if anybody's in the chat and they want like a large painting that's a circle, you let me know because I'd love to create it. But, you know, standing in front of something that's circular and that has like these saturated colors, it's amazing how you just get pulled into it. And yeah, I think scale, and I also think scale can also hinder your work. I think always going bigger isn't better because if the quality of your work is better in small details and then you enlarge them and you don't get the same, it doesn't process or send out the same information, there's no point.
Totally. It's such a different way of working depending on the scale too. Like I've been used to like working on like really large scale things, and then all of a sudden like I started making these like really tiny things that you had to look into, you know, and that way of thinking is, I don't know, it's just like it's so different. Right now that you've been working on like some of the smaller scale things, do you yeah, I don't know, like what your experience has been with that?
They're great. I like them because I can travel with them. And
Oh yeah.
like, and this is wood and it's really thin, but I can work out a thought quickly and I can just easily just travel with them. So I like the smaller pieces. I mean, I like them all. I don't really have a preference, to be honest.
Yeah.
But I do think the smaller ones are more intimate. And I think when someone is buying a piece and they want something that is something they can attach to, something that means something to them, I think intimacy in a smaller piece is important as well.
Do you ever I mean, like your works are so personal and just like I see them as just being so full of emotion, especially like your latest series where you're like digging into your memories. Do you ever like whenever you're creating? I guess my question is like, are you like completely like in your head, or are you ever thinking about like how other people are going to experience your work, like
Um,
in the process of creating? I guess.
I think so. There's this thing that artists talk about all the time is like when you go in the studio, it's hard to remove other people from your head. And that's
Mm-hmm.
difficult. You go into the studio and you spend like the first 30 minutes and you're like, the world is in your head. And so maybe you can take some of them out. So that's also a practice within itself, is just creating and getting the world out of your head. But I create in the sense of other people where I'm like, how is my message? Are they going to digest this in a way that I want them to? But then ultimately I'm like, well, I've done as much as I can in regards to other people understanding it the way I want them to. And then I just
Mm-hmm.
release. So as long as it makes sense to me, and I think that it's digestible by some person, I'm okay. I can live with that. Because I think trying to control like how the world sees it is just frivolous.
I guess I definitely understand that. Like it's more about like you getting your thoughts like onto like something again, like into that like nonverbal
Yeah.
language. But because it is language, I guess that's why I was wondering like how you process that. Um, I guess another thing that I would love to know about like how you or like what you learned in the process of like dissecting your own memories, and getting them onto this nonverbal but like very visual language.
So as far as the series with the memories go, I think with that, I realized that memories are purely illusions. Like there were things that happened, and the more we give them power, be it good or bad, we're letting like the past control and maneuver our lives. And obviously we need memories for safety reasons, like, you know, this route is not safe or this plant isn't safe to eat. So those type of memories that are useful are great, but these triggering, these traumatic memories, there are ways that I can navigate them, and there are ways that I can give them their space, but also reclaim my space, you know? And so I think that's what I've learned mainly with those memories, is that they're things that happened and they've helped shape me, but I can also choose a positive spin on them.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting because we do have these memories for survival, right? But it's like a very like basic sort of like physical survival, but then also there's like the survival of like our emotions, our mental well-being.
Yeah, and it's also interesting, like I'm reading into like epigenetics and how these traumatic memories can be passed on. And I think it's important to also like recognize memories or things that maybe aren't yours and that not yours to carry, but we carry them through generations, and also like confronting them and saying like, you know what, that's not my shit. So I'm not gonna, you know, carry that, you know?
Yeah. I don't know, I feel like a lot of people have been doing a lot of work in that, or, you know, trying to like read more about it or explore it, because it's so true. Like trauma is passed down, and like how much of it are you having to deal on your own, and how much of it like can you attribute to like, oh, okay, you know, seeing it in a more objective sort of way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is there anything in particular that that you've been reading that has informed that?
Yes.
Like
Well,
that particular.
so I went online and I got like someone's JSTOR account, like, you know, those scholarly journals, that kind of thing. And so I've been reading a lot of psychological studies on like PTSD and how trauma affects the body and what memory does and how the brain processes and closes off memory. And
Mhm.
so a lot of my paintings are based upon those readings. So it's just like a folder online of just like over 100 writings, and some that are completely against what I believe as far as we process memories, because it's important to balance that out and not just look for things that make you feel pleasant, but things that kind of also make you uncomfortable. So yeah.
Mhm. I think that that's so important and like such a timely statement, you know, like I think that it's good to be around like-minded people so that you can feel safe and like just find community, but it's, I think, equally important to open up your mind to like to different ways of thinking in that way. Have you like, has that like played into the work that you're doing at all?
Um, Wait, say that again. I'm sorry. I was reading the
Oh,
messages.
that's okay. I'm just curious to know like how, or maybe kind of already answer that question, like how it is important to like to listen and to digest like the way that other people see the world, even though it's like different than yours.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So
I love that. I
yeah.
love, and I think that's why I create with. I mean, you know, I've painted figuratively in this last series I had has figures, but I think it's also important why I like to kind of take myself out of the work is because I don't want someone to see me and then have this bias and not hear what I'm saying. So I try to, and I mean, I can't because I'm human, but I try to almost communicate in a non-biased way and offer this
Yeah.
information in a non-biased way to the best of my ability. So yeah, I think it's
Yeah.
very important. I mean, I even like when people are like, well, I don't agree with that. And I'm like, whoa, great, tell me why, you know? I mean, it's not gonna change how I paint or the way I paint, but it's interesting.
Yeah. I think that like the ability to say that to somebody too is like it takes like a little bit of courage, you know, like especially whenever it is around like people that you consider like-minded people, like having those conversations of like, no, like I don't agree with, you know, with like what you're saying or the way that you're saying this, but yeah, I don't know,
But
it's
yeah.
yeah. Let's see, somebody asked, Beverly asked about your relationship to wood. So I guess like specifically maybe like why you work on wood?
Yeah.
Like what is it about that material?
I just love it. I think it's still living. Like it still has this, let's see. It still has like, this is one I finished a few days ago, but it still has like this visual language that it's telling us through the wood grain. And I like
Yeah.
adds like another element to what I'm creating. And I don't feel like I'm just creating on this like surface that doesn't want to talk back to me. It's like I'm like having a conversation with this thing that was once alive. And so I'm creating and putting my experiences and my words on something that was once alive as well. Instead of just like, canvas is great, and canvas also comes from a living thing, but it's also stale and
Very
boring. Yeah, and I'm also really interested in like Byzantine work and the work of the like early Germans, and not because I'm not religious in any way, but just the altar pieces that they made on this wood, and you can still look at it to this day and see the wood grain through these like, Byzantine and German works. And I think that it adds, I don't know, this almost mystique or this regalness to work.
Well, and I think that it also comes back to like this level of intimacy, right? Because like the Byzantine work, like I mean, you have everything from like giant like tableaus, is that what they're called? Like from churches,
Mm-hmm.
which is meant to like, I guess, inspire a little bit of fear, but also like intimacy, like with your spirituality. And then you have like the tiny, I forget what they're called, but like it was like
Like
little,
worship booklets, yeah. And
yeah,
also,
that like pulled up.
yeah, and then also in that time, if people don't know, in Byzantine times, people they couldn't read. And so what they would do,
Right.
they would create these disguised symbolisms on this wood of like if things were covered in gold, that's like happening in a heavenly place. And I think that using wood and paint in that way is another way that I'm communicating without using words, right?
Definitely.
So it's also that like contemporary tie to that.
Definitely. It's, I don't know, like people didn't, I guess, read words, but they were very literate visually. And I think that that's something that we're almost like having to like relearn now. Because we are so used to like to seeing words, but then like, I don't know, we're constantly being bombarded by messages like with words. And I think that, I don't know, that might be like a useful skill
Yeah.
to work on right now. Um, let's see. What other questions do we have? Oh yeah, like some people were saying that like it's not, they didn't know that it was wood whenever they saw that on Instagram. I think like because your work is so, you do draw from like these different natural things, like it almost looks like you've made that sort of texture, but it's really, I love how you said like having a conversation with the materials.
Yeah, and that question comes from Joe, and Joe's actually one of my carpenters. Like he cuts out stuff for me. So hi.
Oh, that's awesome. Uh, let's see. Ariel wanted to know how like the residency has been informing your work. Um, what's the most aspiring aspect of this experience for you? And I know that you previously mentioned that you like to kind of like sit with like the experience that you're going through before like verbalizing it to people. But maybe talking about a little bit of the experience of being at a residency. Like you're with a lot of really great people out there.
Mhm. Yeah, we have everyone
Uh,
from like writers to musicians, to another like abstract painter, to Brooke Burnside is here. I don't know if you guys know her. Her work's amazing as well, and she has a residency with the line. I'm sorry, with Big Medium at the line. Um,
mhm.
and Lovis Wise is here. She is an illustrator. She's amazing. Parker Thornton is here. He's a photographer and he draws as well. So he's amazing. So it's amazing to have this energy. But I think for me, what's most important is to have so much time to dedicate to painting, and just
Mhm.
painting alone. Like I don't have to be bothered with the minutia of every day, like, being at my house and having to clean that up or dealing with my dogs, or I can like, it's 106 degrees out here and I'll come out here from like 8 a.m. to when it gets dark and I'm just sitting in this spot painting all day. And I
Yeah.
typically do that at home. So I think the time to actually put into just painting is amazing. And I think that experience is really allowing me to, you know, enter into corners and crevices in my brain that I just didn't have the time to do. Honestly, I think it's mainly time that I'm loving that I get to have.
That's great. Have you done other residencies in the past?
I'm in the Boss Babes residency right now, but that's just a digital residency, so I
Yeah.
still have to do, you know, the everyday thing, but not an immersive residency like this one. So yeah,
Yeah,
this is great.
that's awesome. I mean, I've only been out to Marfa a couple of times, and it's just like being surrounded by nature in that way is just I don't know, it's really impactful, and it does like pull you away from like your everyday sort of state of mind. Um,
Yeah, West Texas.
I
If no one here has been in West Texas will make you love Texas. Because I,
yeah.
I don't know about Texas. Then I came out here and I was like, oh, Texas, you know, mountains and, you know, it's beautiful out here. It's magical. So if you're, you know, getting a little tired of Austin or wherever you are, you should definitely venture to West Texas.
Yeah.
Let's see.
So
think
I know that,
a question.
sorry?
So I think Tamara has a question.
I might have missed it.
How has it been painting in Terralingua? Did you come there with ideas that changed during your stay? No, I came here. So the series on memories, I literally finished that the Friday before I came here. So I came here on a Monday on the 10th, and I finished that series that Friday before. And I was like, look, I'm tired. I had like a deep dive in my subconscious since November of 2019. I'm just going to go out there and paint. And then, of course, like being out here and having this vast quietness. And one night we were here, there was like a meteor shower. It was beautiful. And so then,
Oh my God.
of course, I started to like dig into my subconscious again. And so now I'm creating from that. But now I came out here just with a whole bunch of materials and I just wanted to paint. So did it change? Yeah, because I didn't think I was gonna like, you know, do this keep digging again. But I guess once you start, you can't stop. So
I mean, again, especially like being surrounded by by so much inspiration and color, I imagine.
yeah, and then it's also like fun, you know, great to share with other artists. Like, oh, look what I'm making, and what are you making? Like, it's also fun to have that, almost like you're in college and everybody has their studios, right? Because I remember being in college, and that's what I loved is that community of creating. And when you're out of that situation and you're creating by yourself, it's just you in your space creating without that break of looking at what someone else is doing. So this is great.
Well, and especially the way that like the houses are set up over there at Willow House, like you definitely have like your own little, you know, lane, I guess, that you're
Yeah.
looking at all the time. Have you have you found that like I guess that you're focusing on your work in that way, but have you found yourself like talking about like different concepts or things with the other artists that are there? Like any sort of collaboration that has come up?
Yeah, but thanks to you, you let Brooke borrow this printing press, and so now I have it actually
Yeah.
on my desk right here. And
Oh, that's great.
yeah, so I'm gonna like see how that kind of plays into my work if I have some time. But even if I don't, when I get back to Austin, I now have this idea of how to incorporate that into some of the elements that I use. And so I don't know if I would have ever had the time to look at that other aspect if I hadn't been here. And if Brooke hadn't been like, oh, I have this thing in my car, do you want to look at it? You know? So I think that's the amazing thing about residencies is that you can dip your toes into, you know, things that you normally probably wouldn't have the time to.
Yeah, definitely. I'm curious to, I mean, I guess this isn't something necessary that you can answer, but I'm curious to know like how the artists of other disciplines, like how they're processing that. I don't know if you've talked like to any of like the writers that are out there about
Well,
that.
Casey Gerald is the author here, and he's amazing. If you guys haven't heard of him, look him up. His book's amazing. It's a memoir. And he's actually from Texas. He's from Dallas. He's based in New York now. And, I don't pry too much because I want people to be able to, explore what they can. But from what he's telling me, like he's like, having a great time writing. And there's some days when I just see him pass in front of my little studio, and he has this like gleam of like, being able to be the wordsmith that he is and have words come out. And Brooke's right next door to me, and I see this amazing work that she's doing. So I think that maybe for them as well, having this time away from like the news, because the Democratic National Convention, we didn't watch that. Like that's not part of our world here. And so we have this time to sort of indulge. And I think maybe for them, they have that same feeling.
Yeah. I don't know, that's really great. I'm so happy that you're getting this opportunity to be out there and just like focus solely on your work. Where I'm sure I can speak for a lot of people here, like we're excited to see like what comes out of it.
There's a
And
lot.
if there's
Let's see.
any other questions that people would like to ask.
Yeah, I think they're in that little Q&A part. Let's see.
Oh, I've been looking at the chat. I'm so sorry.
Oh, you're fine. I'm sorry if I missed it, but what is the residency you're currently in? So Lauren Werner owns Willow House in Terralingo, Texas, and she created this space for Black artists for 2 weeks, and we're just here creating. So yeah, that's our residency. All right, let's see. When you put the image of your face in a painting, do you feel like the image is you or some distant memory of a past you? So in that series with the memories, there are 3 images that I used, and they're all from different years. So I wanted to use a current image, and then 2 that were like, you know, further out, like past memories. So yeah, they're representations of me and memories that I've had. Yeah. So I guess they are sort of like a distant memory of a past me and a present me, and how the present me and the past me kind of collide.
I mean, really beautiful the way that you do that, because there is one specific piece where there is the 3 of you. Is that the like different
Yeah. So
times?
the piece is I just recently changed my hair, so that middle piece is that picture was literally taken maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago. So that one's like in 2020, and the other 2 I believe is one is from like 2012 and another one's like from 2016. So yeah, and that piece is a nod to like religious idols. And so, you know, you go to church and you pour out all this grace for, you know, whatever I grew up Catholic, so mainly for me, all these, you know, angels and saints that are in front of you, but you never take the time to like return that grace to yourself. And so I wanted to sort of, once again, like that Byzantine style, have these halo adorned images that are seen with the grace and the lens of forgiveness that we give all of these people that we read about in the Bible and all of these things. So
that's really beautiful. Like I guess in that way, like paying that spiritual like homage like back onto yourself. It's really beautiful.
I think we just look at like, oh, these are things I've been through, it's so horrible, but not realizing that we're actually here, and the fact that we're here means that we're through, and those things are horrible, never taking away that, but also that you have time to make better memories.
Definitely. Maybe we all need to take like a trip or like a short-lived residency to like turn back like that onto ourselves in that way.
I know where you guys can go. You can come to Terralingo at Willow House. That's where you can.
True. Let's see. Another question is, how does it feel to physically separate from your work when a piece is sold?
Some of the pieces I people laugh, but some of the pieces I do mourn. Like I don't have kids, and so some of the pieces are sort of like my kids. And so that's why I'll have like a Q&A with people before they want the piece, and you know, talk about why. Yeah, you know, it's like I want to screen you to make sure it's going to a good home. But yeah, I do mourn some of the pieces. Some of the pieces are made purely out of aesthetics and composition, but a lot of the pieces are so personal that I want them to go to great places. So I've been fortunate enough that people who connect with the work, and I think it's because of the way I make it, that only people who want to connect in some way, they're the ones that collect. So I have not had the displeasure of dealing with someone who I don't agree with having my work. Fingers crossed. So
I like this idea of like screening them. I think that I should incorporate that too.
A Black artist, you know, you don't want your work collected on the pure principle of, oh, this is made by a Black person. No. So yeah.
Have you come across anybody that like, I guess, that wanted to buy your work because of that reason?
Yeah, I get a few emails and they're just like, I'm really interested in supporting Black artists. And, I have these list of works, which one's your favorite? It's like, no, which ones are you? Which ones speak to you?
Yeah.
So it's like totally 100% support artists of all, but definitely look at artists that are marginalized and aren't really looked at, but also while you're doing that, offer them the respect of looking at their work and what they're saying and see how that can apply to you and identify with that work. Don't just do it because it's a thing to do. It's an expensive thing to do for you. So you should probably look into, finding something that resonates with you.
Definitely. I think that that's really great advice for collectors out there. Um, so actually that question leads me to wonder, like, because I know on your website you have an option to commission a piece.
Mm-hmm.
Do you talk to the person that's commissioning and use their ideas to like work that into the piece, or is it you're like, actually I just want to create this and
Well, no,
like
yeah, it totally depends on the person. And that's what it says. It's like, you can look at works that I've created and we can talk about that, or you can give me free reign and just give me a color palette. So yeah, it really just depends on if they have like something they've read and they want me to like sort of interpret it like how I do. I can definitely do that. I had someone that reached out to me and I did this piece for one of the members of Little Rock Nine. If you guys don't know, Little Rock Nine were the 9 children who integrated Little Rock High School in Arkansas. And I created that piece specifically for that show that was in New York. And piece is called The Pursuit of Equality. And Terrence Roberts is one of the members and who I got. And he always talks about how he did it and he continues his life as the pursuit of equality for, Black Americans. And so this piece literally spoke about that. And someone was like, I want something like that. Can you just recreate that for me? I'm not going to recreate that specifically because that is for, a specific topic or theme. So there's some things that I just won't recreate. Just because it takes away the reverence that I'm paying to that topic if I just recreate it. So yeah, it just depends.
Have there been any like particular commissions that you've really enjoyed working on? Or,
Yeah.
that like maybe brought out something different that you wouldn't have got out there? Like, again, maybe it becomes more of a collaboration in that sense.
Yeah, I definitely love it to be a collaboration. So when I did the Saatchi Art Fair, depending on your donation amount, you got a commission piece. And a fellow artist, donated, and he said, I just want something tranquil. And to me, when I think about tranquility, I think about the sky. And so I looked at the sky at night and like the sky during the day, and I converged those two. And it's called Converging of Skies. And the way that the colors just came together, it kind of gives the painting this 3D effect with the copper leafing. And that was fun for me because he gave me an idea and I could search within that idea however I wanted to. So that's one of my favorite pieces. And I had a piece by this collector she plays I want to say this right. She plays the piano, I believe, and her mom plays the violin. And she sent me a piece that they composed together. And so the piece is called Avec Le Bois, and Avec Le Bois means with the wood. And it's a term in string music where to preserve the strings, you use the back of the bow, and it's wood on wood. And so it went well with the fact that I create on wood. The violin is made out of wood, and so is the piano. And so I just converged those 3 ideas into that.
That's beautiful. I mean, talk about like a true conversation. Like you have this common theme of wood, and everybody's coming at it from a very different perspective.
And it was fun because I don't know anything about music or anything like that. So I sat around for weeks and like did research on terms of like musical terms. And that was fun for me as well because it's something I didn't know. And now I know these things. So it's great.
That's awesome. Somebody is wondering if poetry influences your artwork. And if so, what writers or what influences your creative process?
So writers, I'm gonna go into my Kindle real quick to make sure I get the names properly. But I actually, hold on, we're having some desert wind. I don't know if you can hear me. It's really windy, believe it or not. So when I was in high school, I actually went to school partly to a creative arts school, and it wasn't for painting, it was for writing. So I did playwriting and I did poetry. So writing is definitely a huge influence in my work, because I think that's the way that we first begin to communicate, is we write. And so I think looking at that form of communication is great, because it helps me, form most of or some of my paintings. So some of the current and contemporary poets that I like is Nayar Wahid. She wrote this book called Salt. Let's see. I also like Preparing My Daughter for Rain. That is by, let me make sure I get their names proper. That's by Kibala, and these are all women of color. So Kibala, Preparing My Daughter for Rain. Nayar Wahid, Yersa Daily Ward is great. Questions for Ada. And I'll put all of these like in the chat if you guys are interested. I'll do that now. But it's amazing to see how these women of color have taken poetry and they've almost created a new form of it. And that's important to me as well, as like taking this communication style and making it your own.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put it in the chat. Please put it in the chat. Okay, give me a second, y'all. Okay. You can ask more questions while I'm typing. I can attempt to.
Do we have any other questions from the audience? Thank you all for asking these really thoughtful questions too. Let's see. Well, I think we might be out of questions now, but yeah, thank you for adding those in the chat for people. I think we'll definitely appreciate that.
Yeah, Bone is great. If you guys have the time, I would definitely, I mean, you have the time because you're in a pandemic and you have nothing else to do. So I suggest you read these authors. What else do you have?
Yeah, this time is definitely great to, I mean, I don't know, I'll read like short things, but I haven't really like had time or made time, I should say, to read. And during the pandemic, it's been this like newfound appreciation for writing. Again, especially like if you're filtering that into like other forms of artwork or like different disciplines, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I even say like, why not even pick up like, go to the art store, go on Blick Art and just order some materials and just paint. Like, it doesn't have to be great. You guys can just paint and create your own things, It's a great way to get things out of your mind. I definitely say attempt to do it. There's one more question. What do you draw inspiration from and how do you prepare yourself for work? How do I prepare myself for work? I don't. I'm always thinking about painting. I even think about painting in this sense of like, oh wow, should I buy that? Because that's like 12 cans of varnish. Like I equate everything to like an art supply. So I'm always thinking about painting. Always. If I'm daydreaming while you're talking to me, I'm probably thinking about painting. And what do I draw my inspiration from? From people, from how people communicate, from readings, from my own struggles with communication.
I think that that's really great. Let's see, so actually before we have like about 8 minutes or so left. I'm wondering because I've gotten people who have like written to me and they're like, oh, I'm so like curious to know like where she's at. Like Aimee's been creating these really great things. Like, do you want to kind of like turn the camera and show us where you're at? I think it's so inspiring.
Now, desert Wi-Fi is tricky, y'all. So if I go out, that's why. So this is my workspace. Like I said, I just brought a whole bunch of materials, and this is yours, Paloma.
Oh, hey.
So yeah, this is my workspace. I have a few pieces that I'm working on. So when you step out, this is my little house. This is my background. Brooke stays right there. This is where everyone else stays. So yeah, it's like a nice little compound we have here.
I feel like you're staying in some of like the Donald Judd.
Yeah, so we did
structures out in Marfa.
Yeah, we did go to Marfa, and that was amazing. We got to tour like the outside of Chinati Foundation. Yeah, Marfa it was great. It was special. I had never been, so having this trip and being able to have 2 weeks of, you know, being able to explore the desert in Marfa, it's been great.
That's really awesome. I'm glad that you guys took a trip over there. It was definitely following along all the artists and seeing what they were looking at over there. Um, well, is there any last things that you wanted to talk about or any other questions that people have?
I'm just grateful you guys took time on your Thursday morning to, you know, hear me speak or chat. I think there's one question that just popped up. Hold on.
Yeah.
Where do you know? I answered that one. Oh, there's two more. Has the desert light affected how you see color in your work at all, or your choice of color palette? Yeah. So what I was saying earlier is that people come to the desert like, oh, it's muted colors, but it's saturated with these muted colors. It also has these pretty dusty blues and these dusty purples. It hasn't affected the way I see color. I think I think it's positively affected the way I've seen color. It makes me realize how potently and how I can see the other colors in a color. Like someone may just see blue, but I see like the undertones and the midtones and the highlights
Yeah.
of those colors. So I appreciate that. It helps me work better on my color theory. So most definitely, oh, very proud mom. Hi, mama. But yeah. Oh, the questions, I did put the authors in the chat questions. They should be there.
Yeah, they're in
All
the
panelists.
Q&A window.
Yeah, if you guys don't see that, if you go to um, that at Instagram, I'll put them there as well later today. So if you don't see them there, I'll put the authors in that as well.
Perfect. That's perfect.
Yeah. It does. It says all panelists. It's right above. It's right under the comment by April at 11:50. I added some people there.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, I think maybe the easier way, and you guys can head over to Aimee's Instagram and she'll share those with you there as well.
I'll put the Instagram again. It's just my name and art behind it. You guys go there, I'll put it there for you. Yeah.
Well, awesome. Well, thank you to everyone who tuned in today. And thank you so much, Aimee, for taking a part in this week's coffee chat and taking some time out of your residency to talk to us about it and also to show us the work that you're working on. That's, I mean, we're always wanting like content, right? But like, it's really appreciated that you were willing to share that with us.
Of course, yeah, I love it. I always want to share because I know when I was younger, I didn't know that this could be a possible way of life. And I think it's important for, younger people to see that you can do something that you actually love and you don't have to be, forced into a traditional job. So yeah, I'm always open to share.
Totally. So everyone, please be sure to check out more of Aimee's work on her website, which is AimeeEverett.com. It's also linked out in the Big Medium coffee chat page where you probably found this invitation. And yeah, follow her on Instagram. Please also tune in next week for our long-awaited Tito's Prize panel discussion featuring the wonderful Betty McConan, whose work is currently on view at Big Medium by appointment only through September 5th. And you can find more information at bigmedium.org.
And Betty's great, guys. Her work is amazing. So you'll love that. You should tune in for that talk as well, because I'll be tuning in. So
yeah, definitely. Cool. Well, thank you all so much, and we'll see you next week.
bye.
Thank you. Bye.